Good morning, professors and friends. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come back to the school. Professor Ramanna said he is Professor of Accounting, but I would say, sir, you are also an excellent professor in finance. You don't need any proof, but your speech was a proof of that. When I got this topic from you guys, the first thing was to relieve the crisis step by step. It was on Sunday evening in September 2008. I had just packed my bag and my driver was waiting to take me to the airport. I was about to go to US to showcase our capabilities in Indian market, basically marketing India to few investors in US. And I was very excited. It was my first visit. It would have been my first visit that time to US, which I've heard the land of opportunities, and like people believe in the future, and everybody believes he can do better in the future than the present. And that's why one of the reasons why I take so much of credit. But I got a call from New York that please do not come now. Lehman has just gone down, and market should be very volatile. And when we reached Monday morning in the office, it was much more than that. I mean, Bank of America had taken over Merrill Lynch, and apparently, deal which was conducted in a washroom, so to say. So, if you look, we all of us know the magnitude of it. Like the 6 months which followed after that, every day or every weekend, we'll see a big $1 trillion kind of deal, be it Fed buying something, be it government buying something, be it somebody taking over something, and it was like all over chaos. And obviously, those decisions may not be rational because you can't take such large decisions in such a small period of time. But somehow the system has stabilized to some extent. Now, though there are, as Sudha pointed out, there are a lot of problems still now. We are still seeing the after effects of the crisis, but we do not have a problem like we had, let's say, in late 2008 and early 2009. So that touched upon the issues of how the bankers should behave and how the risk should be priced and how the central bank should follow their monetary policy and other policies. I would say these are easier topics. Easier things to implement, because most of the people who deal in this area are very highly educated and they can take rational decisions, they can learn from the mistakes, and it is pretty easy for them to change if there is an environment which supports that. So it can take time, but it will definitely be done. I think organizations have learned, their policy making, decision making processes have undergone change. Central banks have learned. They have also, I'm sure their decisions in the future will be much different than it has been in the past. There is one silent actor who is not very much blamed in this whole crisis, is the government. In fact, in any crisis, it is always the most powerful person who is the orchestrator. And you can't really, I'm not taking out the positive parts from the government, but in the crisis also they play the biggest role. They are the guys who are elected by all of us in all the democratic countries. In fact, in the countries, so they are definitely most powerful, and the countries which are not democratic, they are even more powerful. So can something happen of such a large magnitude without the blessings of the government? Or is it even more serious? Did they orchestrate this crisis, leading on to the crisis? So if you go back, maybe you can go back 100 years also, you will find the traces, but for to concentrate only on this crisis, let's go back to around 20 years back. During the 90s and even early part of 2000 or till the crisis, all successive governments, irrespective of their parties, they had followed one simple tool to attract the attractive electorate. That is providing easy money so that they can buy their house, they can feel proud and have that feel good factor and get their vote. It doesn't stop here. Maybe we have to go a little back, a little bit more. Why governments did this? Is it whether it is financial sector or any other in real life, be it any big crisis, big wars, big mutation, big civil wars, or our independence crisis, independence struggle, everything has a bottom line running throughout. That is the rise in inequality among the common people. There was one inequality in the West also. After the Great Depression, leading up to maybe till the 80s, US did extremely well. And the entire population almost participated with them. The unemployment rate was very low. The general wealth with public was increasing. But there was a turn, and that was the Industrial Revolution. Public moved from agriculture to industry, and the transition was smooth and well managed. But if you look at the history, there was in the late 80s, there was a change in the growth pattern. Industrial Revolution was coming to a maturity, and the economy went for a revolution in communication. Unfortunately, or by nature of it, it was very high-tech. General public could not get associated with it. For this, you needed higher education. And government's policies did not change. Government continued with the same education system maybe for another 10-15 years. So the worker who was working in normal organizations, they were not able to transform from their normal industrial work to a more mechanized, more sophisticated services sector, which was mostly revolutionized by inventions in the communication system. So that led to a situation, the income growth in the 90s and the early 2000s was more concentrated with the educated mass. And by the structure of the economy, once these things are not, till the time it is not addressed, the rich becomes richer, because these students, his children get better nourishment, his children get better education, and they by birth, they gain a natural competitive advantage over the poor. So what should have been done there? Government should have changed fast. They should have revamped their education system. They should have brought more average Americans to the higher education platform. But that, like you do that, the education process takes maybe at least 10 years. By the time 2-3 governments will change. So that was not the first choice of the Bush administration, not in the Clinton, and later on during the Bush Jr. also. So they found out that how to keep the people happy, and historically there has been the biggest tool is give credit. But how to give credit? Does government have that much of money? No. So they invented an excellent way to give credit, motivate the private sector to give credit by doing what? The agencies, particularly Freddie Mac and Freddie Mac, they are private agencies, but government gives them tax rates and have control over them. So they formulated regulations towards that. They said all these agencies have to have a certain percentage of their loan book towards the poor, the subprime, the guys who cannot really, will not get a loan in the normal system right now. And that percentage kept on increasing, and before the crisis, that percentage was higher than 55%. And these are really big issues, like balances running in closer to $1 trillion. So initial time, any inefficiency when it grows, initial time it is really profitable, because once these guys give a loan, maybe initially they were reluctant, but when they give the loan and next year the allocations increase, so you give more loan. And in the process, the earlier loans look much better, and people thought maybe it is a profitable business. So these agencies did really well in the late 90s. And the private sector found out that maybe there is an opportunity. So initially they started, we'll also give loan, securitize it, and sell it to these agencies. That worked very well till 2004, 2005, and that inculcated the culture of greed. It always followed, unless till the time it is not checked, at some point of time it will create. So instead of distributing it, they started hoarding it also, taking the inventory in their books. Because if I hold it, I make more money. And they leverage themselves and got into this act in a much bigger way. And whatever other things followed, like inventions around this, the CDOs, CDO square, CDO cubes, it was just distribution of this product among this community, and some final product going to the government's book in the form of the agency books. Everything worked fine because during this 20 years, housing prices kept on increasing. So the guy who was borrowing, he didn't have income to repay, but suppose he borrowed a house at 100 rupees, in the 1 year it becomes 110 rupees, so he has 10 more rupees extra to discount it and repay the loan. So that process went on, and it went on till the time housing prices increased. But the moment it stagnated, this guy was not able to refinance, and everything just collapsed because of this inequality, the loans were given at such rates which cannot take any loss. In fact, it will be ridiculous. Now it sounds ridiculous, but in 2004, during Bush government, they made the minimum down payment required is only 3%, which used to be like any private sector will never lend you anything where the down payment is less than 20%. So that shows the system did not have any capability to take any risk, and that's why the magnitude of the fall. So the questions arise like, was the financial system wrong? Were the concepts which we have read in the policy, maximizing of shareholders' value was wrong, or something else has gone on? The way I look at it is like financial system does basic thing of facilitating flow of funds from the cash deficit sector, cash surplus sector to the cash deficit sector. And in the cash surplus sector, it is the individuals and some corporates, and the cash deficit sector to the governments, corporates, and people who want to consume now by discounting their future expected cash flows. And in the intermediaries, there are bankers, brokers, mutual funds, insurance companies, and the whole process is governed by regulators like in India, SEBI, RBI, who try to maintain sanity in the system. And overall, there is government which doesn't come into this model, but always there with that, because he is the guy who has actually the long-term view. How the country will look, how 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, it is their responsibility. Whether they do it or not, that's a big question. But my thinking is, they know it, but most of the time they are not able to do it because of the whatever election structures we have. I'll come to those points later. But coming to the need of the financial system, see, finance and economics to get it is not science. You ask any simple question to even the, let's say, best two economists in the world, they will have different answers, and you will not find fault in any of those answers. So it's a lot of subjectivity and judgment is involved in that. But if you ask a question about that, all those answers will be right in a longer run, maybe in a 10 year, 20 year down the line, it will be there. In fact, look at now, we have gone through a big crisis, but are we better off compared to last 10 years, 20 years? Most of the people here will be saying yes. But we have gone through a big volatility which was so big that it could have collapsed the system. So